Hey everybody, Dr. G here. I'm a licensed clinical psychologist and body language expert, and today we're going to be analyzing Donald Trump before, during, and after his first day in his civil fraud lawsuit. And before we get started, a couple of quick things. One, I wanted to remind you that these are just my opinions based on publicly available information, and I also wanted to remind you to like and subscribe if you want to see more content just like this. All right, let's go. We're going to start with some comments made by Donald Trump before the trial started.
Thank you very much. This is a continuation of the single greatest witch hunt of all time.
All right, if you've seen my other video on Donald Trump, you'll know that I've talked about how he uses his hands to emphasize when there's something he really wants you to hear. So the single greatest witch hunt, we've heard him talk about witch hunts before. No surprise that he's really trying to emphasize that with his hands.
We have a rogue judge who rules that properties are worth a tiny fraction, 1/100th, a tiny fraction of what they actually are. We have a racist attorney general who's a horror show who ran on the basis that she was going to get Trump before she even knew anything about me.
Now you'll notice the only time he put his hands down is when he was talking about a racist attorney general. Maybe he's not sure that that message is going to land as well as some of the other ones he's talking about. Watch this part again.
What they actually are. We have a racist attorney general who's a horror show who ran on the basis that she was going to get Trump before she even knew anything about me. She used this to run for governor. She failed in her attempt to run for governor. She had virtually no polling. She came back and she said, well, now I'll go back to get Trump again. And this is what we have. It's a scam. It's a sham.
So now his hands are back up again. He wants you to understand a scam and a sham. Not surprisingly, these are things he focuses on oftentimes, but you can see he's using his hands to emphasize these parts again. Everybody has their own tells about what they want to emphasize, the way that they communicate. Donald Trump is very big on using his arms to emphasize the things that matter a lot to him. So you'll notice when he makes his biggest points, he's going to emphasize it with his body.
Just so you know, my financial statements are phenomenal. They are actually less in terms of the numbers used than the actual net worth. The actual net worth is substantially more. No bank was affected. No bank was hurt. They don't even know why they have to be involved.
See, once again, if you're watching the way that he moves his hands and arms, he's emphasizing, I didn't do anything wrong. Now, I know a lot of people are going to ask me, because I see these in the comments when it comes to things about Donald Trump. They ask whether or not it seems like he's lying or whether or not he's telling the truth. With a situation like this, because these are things that he's talked about a lot, you're not really going to see whether or not somebody's being deceptive. Because in order to observe deception, someone has to feel anxious about what they're talking about. The things that Donald Trump is talking about, he's talked about many times. So whether you believe that he's telling the truth or not, you're not going to really be able to observe it in a situation like this, because he's not answering questions. You're just giving him a platform to talk. In a situation like that, much, much harder to tease apart truth from lies or to see body language related to that. Let's go back and watch what he's emphasizing again.
Numbers used than the actual net worth. The actual net worth is substantially more. No bank was affected. No bank was hurt. They don't even know why they have to be involved. And they've so testified. They can't believe that they're involved because they were paid back on time. There were no defaults. There were no problems. And it was like a perfect client. In the meantime, people are being murdered all over the sidewalks of New York. There was no victim here. The banks were represented by the best, biggest, most prestigious law firms in the state of New York.
So his hands are down again. As he's talking about these things, the stuff that matters less to him, when he's talking about the banks weren't hurt, because he said that a minute ago. That's one time he put his arms down. He's doing it again now when he's talking about the banks, because what he wants people to hear is, this is a setup. It's a witch hunt. All of those kinds of messages. Those are the things that matter to Donald Trump.
Actually, in the country, some of the biggest and best law firms, in all cases, the biggest and best law firms. That's who represented them.
Now, in terms of the emotions on his face, if you look at his brow, you can see quite a lot of anger today, and not surprisingly, considering he is going to trial for a fraud-related case. So no shocker that he's angry. But he oftentimes lifts his eyebrows to bring people's attention to his face more. I think that the anger about the situation is overriding that. That's why really we're observing his hands more than we are the face.
Accept that, but they say it's over. This has to do with election interference, plain and simple. They're trying to damage me so that I don't do as well as I'm doing in the election. Our country's gone to hell. We have a country that.
So you'll notice when he talks, and it's kind of hard to see just because of the angle, he's talking with open palms, and oftentimes we associate this with someone who really didn't do anything. They put their hands up. If you watch my other videos, you probably heard me talk about this. They put their hands up going, hey, like, I didn't do anything. And we do oftentimes associate that with honesty, but really more in the context of when somebody's being asked questions, because really it's a reaction of, did you do something? Hey, I didn't do anything. That's really when we associate it with that more. But when people are watching him talk with open palms, they may be more likely to believe him because of that body language.
That's in decline, serious decline. We have a man running our country who has no clue, doesn't know what he's doing, and you know it better than anybody because you have to cover him.
Now, if you watch the head motion, when he nods like that, that's when he's trying to relate to people, because he's oftentimes when he does that, he's talking about like, hey, you know what I'm talking about. So this is a way that he tries to connect more. Watch this right here.
Who has no clue, doesn't know what he's doing, and you know it better than anybody because you have to.
See, and you know it better than anybody. When he does that, I think that he believes that he's making a point that other people will really relate to. So when he does that, watch for the content of what he's saying.
Cover him. They always run opposed. He's getting Trump. The bosses say, don't run against this guy. He's doing great. He's getting Trump. But he overplayed his hand, and he should be investigated.
So watch him lick his lips. Oftentimes when we do this, it can either be stress or excitement. So as he talks about how he feels about the judge, I think this is getting his adrenaline going. Watch this again, and then we'll see what he says after it.
Great. He's getting Trump. But he overplayed his hand, and he should be investigated for what he's done. What he did in undervaluing these properties is a disgrace to our nation. Take a look at the financial statement. Don't believe anything you read. This is up front. Don't believe anything you read. Some people call it a worthless clause because it makes the statement and anything you read in the statement worthless. It says go out and do your own research. Go out and do your own due diligence. You have to study the statement carefully. Do not believe anything. In fact, it's so strong that...
And he really means that too. Watch his arms. He does this. He crosses his arms when he says, don't believe anything. Watch this right here.
Go out and do your own due diligence. You have to study the statement carefully. Do not believe anything.
That's something he really believes. He really wants people to hear that point.
That's okay. Let's go forward anyway. It's good publicity. These are corrupt people we're dealing with.
So his hands went right back up when he starts talking about corrupt people. He wants you to hear people are corrupt. This is a witch hunt, so on and so forth. That's really the message of this speech right here.
Businesses are fleeing New York because of horrible, horrible attorney generals and judges like we have. They go to other places where they can be treated fairly and with respect. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you. Thank you.
Now we're going to watch Trump in court for just a minute, as well as we're going to see the judge very briefly. Now, one thing you're going to obviously notice from Trump is that he's not moving a lot. Now, I talk about that sometimes as being a way to hide if people are trying to hide something. I don't see it as trying to hide in that sense right here. I think that why he's doing that is he's trying to show as little emotion as possible, because then you maintain control when you sit and you give nothing. For somebody that moves a lot and tends to have a lot of facial expressions, he shows very little right here. You'll see what I mean. This is Judge Engeron, who's presiding over the case. I'm going to go ahead and let this play for a second because this clip right here has been talked about a lot on social media and it just happened a little while ago. So he took his glasses off, smiled for the camera. I think a lot of people have reacted to this because many of us who watch trials watch a lot of criminal trials. And oftentimes, at least in my experience, you don't see judges do this a lot. So I think a lot of people just don't know how to interpret it. So doing that is a direct sign of saying, yeah, I don't know. I don't know what that's in reference to or who he's talking to. I don't know if that's his reaction to having just smiled on camera, but that's very much a natural reaction of saying, I don't know. Now we're going to watch Donald Trump's statements after court. All right, the first thing we've already seen. Watch the corner of his mouth. All right, so the corner of his mouth went up. When we do that with one side, that oftentimes is a sign of contempt. Coming out of that courtroom, he's not feeling great, probably feeling a bit of contempt right there. And the anger I pointed out in the brow is much more pronounced now. So I think he's been energized by being in court. He looks a lot more irritated, and he wasn't exactly happy going in there.
Okay, thank you, everybody. This is a disgraceful situation. As I say, murders are going on as you stand here. They're wasting everybody's time for many months of this case where banks got paid a fortune, loan money got paid money back, didn't even need their money.
Now, you'll notice he's not, you can't really see his arms, but you'll notice he's not using his arms. You'd be able to tell if he was. So right now, his energy is different than before.
Other things that had to do with the statute of limitations, where they wanted to go back to 200 years ago, 500 years ago. It was limited, very much limited, and it amounted to about 80% of the case was won by us in the appellate division. And this rogue judge, a Trump hater, the only one that hates Trump more is his associate up there.
So you'll notice he signaled back towards the court a couple of times because he wants you to focus on them. He wants you to focus on the fact that he's saying these people are corrupt, they hate me, all of these things. Beforehand, when he was talking, it was a lot more of his typical style of speech. He uses his arms a lot, uses them to emphasize moving in and out. That's just a typical way that Trump talks. It seems like he has for a long time. But right now, I think that he feels irritated. He feels frustrated. He does not like the way that things went in court. And so now he's feeling really angry. So the way he's emphasizing what he's talking about is a little bit different right now.
Person that works with him, she's screaming into his ear, and almost every time we ask a question, it's a disgrace. You want to know the truth? It's a disgrace.
So watch his eyebrow flash right here when he says a disgrace. You're going to see him lift his eyebrows up.
Time we ask a question, it's a disgrace.
So you saw that. He really does feel that. That's something that we do involuntarily. So him talking about it being a disgrace, he's moving his eyebrows up to bring attention to his face, so you'll hear that point, and he actually feels that pretty strongly, I think.
When we won the case in the appellate division, and this judge refuses to acknowledge the appellate division, meaning he's got...
And now you can't see it very well from here, but he is moving his arms back and forth again. So he's starting to get back into that rhythm.
Now, I don't know the people that we're talking about in Palm Beach County, but they saw this egregious trial, this horrible, horrible trial going on, while at the same time people are being murdered right outside of the streets, and nothing happens to those people that do the murdering.
So you can hear the way he changes the inflection in his voice, talking about people being murdered in the streets. He gets a more aggressive tone because when he talks about these things, he wants it to resonate with people emotionally. So he does have more anger in his voice when he talks about that. Listen to the way his voice fluctuates as it goes from one subject to the next.
Horrible, horrible trial going on, while at the same time people are being murdered right outside of the streets, and nothing happens to those people that do the murdering.
See what he's saying? There's a horrible trial going on. His voice is a little bit higher when he says that, and now people are being murdered in the streets. It goes down. And he emphasizes that because that's something people can relate to. People will connect with that.
When you have a radical left attorney general like Letitia James, who's a disgrace to our country, who got elected on the fact that she's going to take down President Trump. We're going to take him down. She knew nothing about me.
See, and there's a real, not shockingly, because once again, I understand that he's very angry about this, but he's showing it. And the more people show anger and they show those kinds of emotions, people will go, okay, that's something he really feels. That means that that must be true, and I can connect with that. That's oftentimes when people show strong emotions. People do connect with that more because oftentimes we associate trying to hide with deception. So doing that is a strong way to convince people of your position.
And she's going to take down President Trump. We're going to take him down. She knew nothing about me. But she got elected on that basis. And we have others likewise. Take a look at what's going on in Georgia. Take a look at Jack Smith.
See, there was that head bob again. Take a look at what's going on in Georgia. To him, this is an important point.
Others likewise. Take a look at what's going on in Georgia. Take a look at Jack Smith. Take a look at these people. There's a judge that should be disbarred. This is a judge that should be out of office. This is a judge that some people say could be charged criminally for what he's doing. He's interfering with an election, and it's a disgrace. Thank you very much.
And one last thing, there was that head nod again, and it's a disgrace. He either believes everybody's going to agree with that, or he really wants you to. Watch his head right here.
Interfering with an election, and it's a disgrace. Thank you very much.
Mr. Trump, why do you want to be there?
Because I want to watch this witch hunt myself. I've been going through a witch hunt for years. But this is really now getting dirty between Jack Smith and between all of these DOJ people helping them along.
You'll notice when he talks about Jack Smith, he pushes his hand down because that's a way of mentally pushing him down, being above Jack Smith. And it's an aggressive sort of gesture.
Witch hunt for years. But this is really now getting dirty between Jack Smith and between all of these DOJ people helping them along. This is a pure witch hunt for purposes of interfering with the elections of the United States of America. It's totally illegal. This judge should be disbarred. He shouldn't be allowed to be a judge. Thank you.
So I hope this helps you better understand some of Trump's body language before, during, and after court today. I'll continue to cover this if we continue to get footage of it. If there's other cases you want me to analyze, please let me know in the comments below. Before we wrap things up, though, I do want to remind you to like and subscribe if you want to see more content just like this. All right, thanks for watching.